Welcome to Collective Silversations, where spirit leads, truth rises, and the real conversations happen. I'm Jody Jones, psychic medium, medical medium, frequency healer, and spiritual mentor. Every week, I sit down with world class visionaries, spiritual teachers, healers, entrepreneurs, disruptors, and truth tellers who carry keys for this moment in our collective evolution. We go beyond surface talk into the energies, the patterns, and the spiritual codes that activate deep healing, awaken higher consciousness, and call you into full energetic leadership of your life. These are the conversations that stir something inside you, and once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. Wherever you're tuning in, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and get ready to step fully into the soulversation. Let's begin. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Collective Silversations. This is going to be an interesting conversation. I'm glad you guys are here today. So, what if the missing could speak? What if a piano lost for 30 years could tell you exactly where it was hidden? And what if the FBI called you not for evidence in a file, but for visions in your mind? So today's guest doesn't just imagine these things, she actually lives them. So today's guest is no ordinary medium. She's a forensic medium. She's a forensic psychic, a master teacher, an international peace ambassador, and a woman who's worked with the FBI to solve cold cases, locate missing persons, and unearth history's lost legends, literally. So, from mapping crime scenes through psychic vision to finding Babe Ruth's long lost piano veneers after 30 years in the dark, Reverend Sheila Marie brings a depth of skill and spiritual grit that blows the limits off of what you thought about mediumship and what mediumship could actually do. So, this is not just about the woo, it's about the raw truth. It's the investigative insight and the places where spirit will take you when you're willing to go all in. So, Sheila, welcome to Collective Silversations.
Thank you so much for that marvelous introduction. It was beautiful. Wow,
So,
that's the
so
best introduction
exciting.
I've ever had.
You know what, when we were going through and I was, getting to know who you are and the stuff that you were doing, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. I'm excited to meet just the depth of the people don't understand there's so many different styles of mediumship and different mediums are called to do different things. I mean, my team does completely different work than your team does, obviously.
Yeah.
But we both kind of, we answer to the call of spirit. So I'm like super, super excited about this. So before we get into the deep mechanics of your work and how it actually works, I want to take people right into the middle of it with you. So I know that you've been part of high profile cases and historical finds. So interesting. Can you take us into the moment of one that still blows your mind today?
I always go back to the beginning when that happened. You know what I mean? Because it seems like I've done over 400 cases, and it always brings me back to that first moment because it's like the first aha moment too. I would say I worked on a cold case in one of the cities in the United States. I don't tell the names and stuff of my cases because I don't, as even when a case is closed, it's still live to me. People have families, this and that, and not everybody's always happy, and they're criminals and stuff like that. So I try to protect myself and my family. And so anyways, I never forget when I first started having dreams. And this is how I knew it was my life purpose because I was working on a case and I didn't know what the case was about because when someone comes into the studio, they just give me their name. And that's all I want because the less I know, the more information I'll get because I won't be thinking in subconsciously about it or anything like that. So I went home and that evening I had a dream that like when I got in the dream, it was like all of a sudden football lights come on like in the nighttime and I'm like present like and I can almost hear myself breathe. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. And I'm like I'm feeling myself moving my head like this and beneath me was the top of I felt in the dream of a little boy. I could see the blonde hair, his blonde hair. And I was just looking at, and I was curious in my dream. And then the next thing I know, he was taking me down in a city, and I was in a pagoda, I think that's what it's called. And he was showing me things, and I was like, I like right now when I talk about it, you know how the psychic files are, the Akashic records, you remember everything. So he was showing me all of this information visually, and I was present in that point. And then I was having a hard time breathing, and my husband at the time goes, "Wake up, you're having a dream." I'm like, "Oh my God, what was that?" I go, "I never had experienced that before." So I wrote it down. Well, and I at the time I had never really had a dream before like that. Like, you have your dreams where you interpret them. It might have meant this. It's not, this was different.
Mm,
It was like an outer body experience. It's like I was there.
right.
And so the next night, this went on for weeks, every night. And it got to the point where I'd be waking up screaming, and I'm like, I can't take it. And I begged the universe. I said, please don't give me any more dreams anymore. I want to sleep. I'm afraid to go to sleep.
Right. Yeah.
And so needless to say, long story short, the contact that came in for this case into I used to have a studio in a mill up in Medway, Massachusetts, and he comes in, and I said, "Well, I just let you know that I got all these dreams. I'm going to tell you about them. This, and that little." Well, the family sitting there bawling their eyes out because they knew everything, and all I knew was it was a child. Apparently, I was right. It was this child visiting me in dream,
Hmm.
and or it was my guides. I don't know. It's a combination of both, I think.
Yeah.
And uh and I told them everything. It was just amazing. I mean, the details from the crime, what happened, to the information they knew, everything was all given to me in the dreams. So that's how I knew that was my life purpose. So that was like for me as a person, I was like, oh my God, what's really happening here? There's so much more than just mediumship. There's so much more than just doing readings. That's all I was going to do, and teach people how to connect. I'm like, wow, I mean, I know it's real, but wow, this is really real.
Yeah, for
Like it
sure.
elevated it, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I'm like, the universe is in control. Boy, are they ever.
Yeah.
And I am working for the spirit world, that's for sure. So that was like my wow moment. But is
And
that
so
what?
prior to that though, so that big moment, and I mean that's a big like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
we're doing this now.
Yeah.
So so prior to this, you often hear mediums will say, you know what, I was born like this. I started
Oh.
hearing. Was that you, or did this like just all of a sudden like, oh, now we're changing lives and we're changing? Is that how it worked for you?
Well, it's really funny that you say this. So I actually talk about it in my book in the my forensic medium, The Power of Unseen. But anyways, I put a little plug in there. I so when I was little, I'm Pisces, so I was born in February, and my mom used to always say to me, she's psychic, she's psychic. And I was like, oh my God, why is she saying those evil words to me? Because we were very Roman Catholic, and I knew that that was not good to go to psychics or anything like that. This is
Right,
how I was
right.
raised. So for many years, this happened. And then when I was like around 10 years old, I was a sensitive child. I mean, I was scared of the dark. Like, I mean, I could feel everything to an extreme. But I think most kids can. But, when my hormones started coming in around 10 or 11, it was really extreme. So I would say I was always intuitive. I never went to a psychic reading or anything like that. It was totally against it. But I always knew that I could sense things, but I didn't think anything of it. Actually, when I was 11 years old, my dad was he was a chief of police, but he used to have a hypnosis. He learned how to become a hypnosis person. He did that on the side for hit and run cases. And I would visit him on the weekends, and he would say, okay, Sheila, sit down. I'm like, okay, close your eyes. And what was he doing? He was getting me into a meditative state. He was using me as his guinea pig to practice for his clients. Well, so during that time, I understood that there is a inner light system. There is a outer world, not, I mean, there is an outer world in this universe, not just what we see.
Right.
And that inner light, that connection. And I understood that because I understood the meditative part. And so later on in years, I didn't think anything of it, and later on, so I'll tell you, this is funny. So my daughter, she was like 2 years old. Her and I, we were in the bedroom, and I lived like in a contemporary cape. We're on the second floor, and it had like windows that went side to side. And I'm on the phone with my sister. I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "It's raining in my house. Is it yours?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "That's weird." So I go over to the window and I shut it. And as I did, it stopped raining. And I'm like, I heard like thunder. I'm like, "That's really weird." And next thing I know, I'm sitting with my eyes, not in the inside of my mind, but with my eyes, I'm looking at the bathroom, edge of the bathroom, and I see this ball of white I don't want to say it looked at me, but it did in its own way. It looked at me, then
Right.
it went back, and I went, "Oh my God." She's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's my bathroom." She's like, "What? But it's in my bathroom." And she's like, "What's happening?" I'm like, she goes, "Oh, now you have to understand, my Italian sister-in-law, very Italian, she's very new age at the time, and I was not. I was at the other end of the spectrum. She goes, "Oh my God, you're seeing spirits. I gotta help you." Blah, blah. And I'm like, "Oh my God." And then the white light flew across the room. My daughter saw it too, and we're just looking at each other like, and that was that. And so next thing I know, I'm getting a gift certificate to go to meet your spirit guide class from her for Christmas. And
Right.
I'm like, "She's out of her freaking mind. I am not going to that." So I put my uh gift certificate in the cupboard in the kitchen, and then later on, a couple months later, I'm like, "I better go to that." I'm like, "She's gonna be really hurt if I don't go, and I don't want to deal with her." Right.
Right. Right.
So I went to the class, and the woman that everyone, it was very spooky place. It was very, because up in Boston, Massachusetts is where the Salem witch trials took place. There's
Yeah.
a lot of witches and all that.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
terrified, right? I really was. And I was praying at the time. I was very Roman Catholic. And I said, "Oh, Jesus, Mary, please don't let me see it. If I'm not supposed to see anything, don't let me see anything. Please protect me." Right. So
Right.
I get into there. And what does the lady do? She starts taking us in meditation. I'm like, "I know how to do this." Right. So I
Right.
get in the meditation. And of course, as you know, once you get into your higher consciousness, boom, all of a sudden you start seeing things that you're not creating subconsciously. And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I saw a lot. And I come out of there crying. And I came home and I said to my husband, I said, "I have to do this." He's like, "What do you have to do?" And I said, "Well, I have to do mediumship." He's like, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "Like readings." He's like, "Oh my God." I said, "It's okay." I said, "You know what? You can divorce me. So, because if I don't do this, I'm going to die." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't teach people that they need to connect with their inner light, who they are. I'll die." He's like, "You lost." He's thinking I lost my mind. I'm like, "No, it was that strong to me.
Right.
And that's what changed my life. And that's where I knew that I didn't have a choice if I didn't teach people how to connect. That was like why I was here. It was
Wow.
like and I never even knew what a life purpose, a calling was until then. Like no
Wow.
one ever mentioned what's a calling. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and someone said to me, "Oh, it's your calling." I'm like, "Well, what's that?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I guess it is, because I just left my whole life because I was police officer, political, this and that, but although I lived a double life. And I think you can understand this. I don't know how it is for you, because I know you're a medium and stuff, but it's not easy. People judge.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we have to educate them a lot about, well, what is a medium? What does it mean? What's a psychic?
Yeah.
And then yeah, there's a big difference, right? Between
Right?
them.
Oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I lived a double life. On Sundays, I drive an hour away and go do readings, and then I come back, be the wife, be the political wife, this and that. And it got to the point where my mediumship started growing. And the more I became in touch with my inner light system, the more it intertwined with my life. And that's why here I am now. My whole life is mediumship now. I don't live a double life anymore, because I helped, and I'm sure you have as well. Once you start helping people connect and understanding that they're all about vibration and frequency, yada yada, it changes your life too. And you begin to become more enlightened, as they want to say, but closer to the energy and the frequency. And your life changes. It's all good. It's like a lotus flower coming out of the mucky swamp.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so cool though, too, because I feel like, it kind of always bothered me a little bit because I was like, well, I don't think I was like, I mean, I was born an empath. I've always been highly sensitive, right?
Yeah,
I was born into dysfunction. I was, so all
yeah,
of the traits that, you commonly see. But when I would hear stories about other mediums, especially when I first started, my gift started coming online, I'd be like, well, that doesn't sound exactly like me. I didn't see my grandma when she passed. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So I was like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be a medium like that. But it's very interesting how I feel like we have a lot of similarities where, my team completely kept me out of the, like the love and light and the actual psychic world and all of that stuff. So it was the same thing when I finally started, answering the call of it. I would be like, no, I haven't heard of that before. What's that about? And I feel like they do that so that we are non-biased, right? So that
yeah,
when we go in and we do the actual readings, it's not like we end up have these perceived notions of like, I had never read Dolores Cannon's book before. I'd never, you know what I mean? All
yeah,
of these things. So when people would go, oh yeah, Dolores Cannon talks about that in her book, I'd be like, oh, does she? Okay,
yeah.
well,
I
that's
know.
good.
I'm
Good
like, honestly, I don't
validation.
even know who you're talking about.
Right. Well, see, so that's a perfect point. That's where
Yeah.
they literally kind of make our world kind of small so that when we step into the calling and sometimes we say we're stepping into it but they really drag us, right? We're trying, you're doing this now. This is your purpose. But with reason. So with reason for sure.
Right.
So I have to talk about this because this is so like so exciting when I was looking at your stuff. So let's talk about the Babe Ruth piano case. So
Okay.
after decades with zero visibility, right?
Right.
How did you know exactly where to look? Like, did it come to you in a vision or a sensation or something else?
Well, when I was brought there, you can read about it in my book, but when I it's how we got there, but when I got to the space where they took me, I go in my head. So I call them my guides, the universe, my higher connection, my higher consciousness, whoever that is that's running the show for me when it comes to my mediumship. So basically, I walked up on a hill and I actually picked up a stick actually. And I still have that stick. And I know that's weird, but I kept it. And so I go in my head, and basically what happens to me is I get into so in the beginning of my mediumship, I used to have to close my eyes and kind of get in a meditative state, and then okay, I'm seeing this and that. As you progress in your mediumship, you don't have to close your eyes. You can keep your eyes open, and for me, it's very quick, boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And so what happened is I got up on the top of the hill there and the water was beneath me. And I said, okay, spirit. They said there was like 5 or 6 people walking around me because they're all like curious and they're listening. And Kevin, he was one of the guys. He's like, oh, everybody be quiet. And he was very good with me because we had a partnership where he knew how to ask me the right questions without me thinking.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
he would say, okay, I said, okay, Kevin, just ask me a question. And he'd ask me, and boom, I'd see an image, and then I'd tell him, and then we'd interpret it if I needed to, because sometimes it comes in symbolism or it just comes accurate. And what I saw was nautical marks. And I explained it to them, and they all wrote it down, this and that, and that gave them 10 minutes of my time. And then we went back to work because we were doing historical stuff. They would take me out every Sunday I worked every Sunday for 6 months in fields and stuff and say, okay, Sheila, what do you see? And I would interpret like poems. It was like in where the Revolutionary War started in the United States.
Wow.
So there was
Yeah.
a lot of information and stuff, and they were working with the Smithsonian. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And so I went out there and I wasn't paid. I went out there to give, and I looked at it as great practice for me.
Hmm.
And so what happened is the next day, I didn't know it, but I couldn't believe it. They had state divers lined up and a permit for the pond, and they went out and they found the veneers in 10 minutes.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And I was not happy. They were ecstatic. The news went from India to Japan, Australia, all over the world. And I
Right.
wanted to die because I'm like, nobody knows I'm a medium and I wanted to crawl under a rock. And so
Wow.
it was hard for me. And
So it was like an outing. It was like you're out of the spiritual closet now, that kind of
yes,
thing. Yeah.
universe said, Sheila, you're coming out today.
Right, right, right. And
and
maybe
let it
maybe let our
fall.
listeners know a little bit more because I know I mean depending on your age and your location,
Sure.
what was it that you actually because so you want to tell us who Babe Ruth was and what it was that you actually discovered?
Oh yeah. So what happened was is Babe Ruth, who was a famous baseball player, Red Sox and Yankees. He was, I don't really know too much about him. You can still read about him because I was into the mediumship part of it, but he's a famous baseball player. You can look
Yeah,
him up. He was a legend.
right.
And he lived in Sudbury, Massachusetts. And he also, I don't know if it was his cottage or his house at the time. I'm not sure, but it was rumored that he put his piano in this body of water. And the environmental state police and seekers had been searching for it. And the water has zero visibility because it's a pond, very mucky, this and that. And they've been out there for 30 years with machines that they couldn't find it.
Right.
And yeah, so then when I told them the information from Spirit, they went out, boom, located it. It was couldn't believe
Wow.
it. Yeah. And so, yeah, so it was very big, legendary, with the Babe Ruth and stuff like that. And then there was one point they called him the Bambino as well. So
Right, right.
so we always said, oh, we find his piano, we break the curse of the Bambino because the
Oh,
Red Sox hadn't won any games or World Series or something, and we
right.
broke the curse
Right.
because of
Right.
that. It was really
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so
Yeah.
you feel like though that was like, I mean, obviously it brought your career into the spotlight, right into the public spotlight for sure. But do you
Mhm.
feel like you like weren't ready then? Like you were
Oh
like,
no. Well, I'll have to tell you, that definitely was how I shifted into being a forensic medium,
right,
because the
right,
next thing I know, I'm getting knocks on the door from agencies, not police, but agents and stuff. Can you help us find this information for homicide? So it's not always missing persons, it's crime, all kinds
right.
of world events, all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
And I was like, what is happening here? Right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I did
yeah.
not expect that.
Right,
But at that time in my career, Spirit was using Kevin as a facilitator for me to learn my forensic mediumship because he was showing me, like, we'd work on cases where we traveled too. And he would say, okay, Sheila, ask Spirit this. And so we got into a pattern, and I actually formed my blueprint of how I work with my forensics. And I actually teach that blueprint now to advanced students.
very cool.
And yeah, because so that's what happened. But at the time, I was, I didn't, he always, and people would say, Sheila, you're being accurate. And I just had a hard time accepting it. The acceptance really got in the way. Yes, I was accurate because I'm not thinking and I didn't know any information. The less you know, the easier it is to see, really.
Right. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Because of the part of, but for me personally, yeah, I was like, I didn't, I was, that was like the shift. That was the shift right there. And then I had like a documentary, Chronicle came out, and all these movie theaters and production companies. I'm like, what's happening here? I'm
it
like,
just
okay,
kind of
Sheila,
exploded. You went viral, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much. And then I said to myself, you know what, Sheila? Just breathe. And I don't ever look for cases or anything. I said, you're working for Spirit. Just allow the universe to bring you what you need and
hmm,
show you, and trust your guides, trust
right,
the universe.
yeah,
And when I start to not think about the outer world, but go in the inner light system and the connection, it calmed me. But as
mhm,
far as mediumship, I can understand what you mean, because a lot of mediums that are my students, they'll say to me, well, how do you know? How do you know you're accurate? How do you know? You know what I mean? Well, let me just tell you, I don't know if I'm accurate or not, but when they understand it, I'm pretty accurate.
right, right, yeah,
So what I do is I get into the mechanics of the mediumship, and along the ways of me learning my trade, I develop my own style of teaching too you
right,
know
yeah,
and so that, and in order for me, anyway, I can only speak for me, but in order for me to master accuracy as best I can, I need to master the mediumship first.
right, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's what
Yeah.
that
And
is.
it's
Yeah.
and it's interesting because again, I think people don't realize the difference between being a psychic and being a medium. They're two different things. And the thing about, when you're psychic, you're talking mostly about future, or you're talking about relevance. So it's kind of, you can be, you can be a little vague about things. It's not, but mediumship, you can't fake it. So and you're either right or you're wrong.
Yeah,
There's no in between. And it's interesting because I know when I started, when they started calling me in to do the mediumship, and I mean, I can do both, so I know both worlds.
yeah,
But it was, you could understand that there was such a difference in the process of how it's done, right? How you receive the
mhm,
information, how it comes through with the clarity of it. And again, it's like either you get it right from I always say we're just interpreters. So they come through, they give us the information. Our job is just to give it as we receive it, right? We don't alter it, we
that's
don't
right.
change it. Um, but if we're getting it wrong, do you know what I mean? If we're like, and they're like, well, no, that's not right. We'll
Mhm.
be like, okay, I'm the error here. Let's go back. Let's get it. Because spirit's never
That's
wrong,
right.
right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you
for
may be
sure.
thinking, because our mind gets in the way subconsciously, sometimes we don't realize that. Or my other thing is a lot of people interpret it wrong as well. So
Right. Yes.
whatever, and what I tell my students is whatever comes to you first is always what it is. Don't doubt it and don't
Right.
overthink it
Yeah.
because your job is to say, in other words, like I had this woman, I always use this as an example. Her son had passed, and I kept on seeing different color mats everywhere. It was really kind of cool, all the different shapes and that. Well, she understood it, but I didn't. But what was important was the trigger. Her son's name was Matt.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
so it's really about the interpretation a lot. And like when we're in class, I'm always telling everyone, are you thinking that or are you feeling it? Because if
Right.
you're
Yeah.
thinking it,
Yes.
9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
and they'll like if they're interpreting a reading and they'll say, well, I think this is not. I'm like, you did what? I'm like,
Right.
there's a
Right.
point in the
Yeah.
class if
Yeah.
they say think, I'm like, no, go back.
Right. Yeah.
You're already
Yeah.
subconsciously thinking,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's one of those when when I would teach students as well, it'd be like, this is the one place we're going to say there's no thinking involved. You're not coming here to
That's
do
right.
any thinking for sure. Yeah, and I mean, it's really interesting how I know for me, like my team has changed and evolved. And of course, when I first started and they were, I was very clairvoyant, so I could see things clearly. And I can remember just when you're talking, like one of the very first readings that I ever did. And I was so nervous. It was for this family. I like went to their home. Her husband had passed. It was a, big Italian family. There was like 12 people around a table, and here I am sitting there. Be like, okay. And again, like you say, we go, okay, spirit, like you show up. I'm here. Like, tell me what we do. And I can remember, like, it was easy to establish contact with him, but they were showing me a plane, like a little two-seater plane, right? And I kept on saying to them, do you understand the connection with him to the plane? They're clearly he's showing me the plane, this plane. And they were like, no, no. And as a new medium, when you get the
Yeah.
notes, you're like, poof, poof, poof. There goes my connection, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, I finished the reading. I did it all. Felt kind of like was stuck on that no, was like, oh no, I failed. And then a few hours after, the wife, she sent me an email and she sent me a picture of it was a portrait on a wall and it was a two-seater in small
Ah,
engine plane
there you
and
go.
it was literally above his desk in his office.
Ah, that's wonderful. Isn't that great?
Right. So
Yeah,
you get validation like that and you're like, okay, I wasn't wrong. I wasn't seeing it wrong. I wasn't.
that's right.
I want to ask you this though, because this also happened to me, very early on. I feel like they're just showing me sometimes they will test us, like to be like, okay, so let's see what type of mediumship she would be good at. Like let's
Mhm.
see how we can, because very early on there was a missing, there was an accident that happened in a nearby town where I live, and there was a missing boy. So it was a child that was missing, and it was a water, got swept under the water. The mother was with it, and so
Mm.
his body was missing and everybody was looking for it, and I had everybody messaging me, can you go help this family, please, can you go and help them? And I can remember as soon as I heard about it, instantly I could connect with the child, and he
Mhm.
was passed. He was
Of
what I mean?
course. Yep. Yep.
uh And for me, being somebody who's like highly sensitive, it felt like such a blow. Like I was so emotional about it. Like it
Hmm.
was just, and yet all these people out actively looking like with hope of like, we're going to find him. We know he might be here. And I knew that he wasn't. I knew that he wasn't in this realm anymore.
Hmm.
And at that point I was like, I can't do this work.
Hmm.
And I had a few families after that try and come as well, and it would be the same thing. It'd be like, our son has been missing for so long. Can you help us locate him? I'd go in and he'd be gone. And I was
Hmm.
like, I can't do this. Like this
Right.
is so did you and how do you
Hmm.
get yourself out of the emotional impact of, because these are people that have passed and people that
Yeah.
how do you manage that?
Well, I'll tell you, everything leading up to me becoming a medium is, and even for you and everyone else, is the foundation of what's coming in your mediumship. I was a police officer for over 15 years, and I'm an investigator, rape investigator, you name it. Okay.
Right.
So my policing and going to the academies had a lot to do with me, has a lot to do with me. When I get a case, I become the policewoman.
Right, right.
I'm the medium. I'm a contractor, but I go into that policing mode where I'm not attached emotionally. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I basically I understand what you're saying because it can be very hard. And so I go into that mode. And what I do is I go into me and my guides. It's only about me and my guides and give it up to them. Okay, show me what I need to. And I block out the whole world because, especially where it's close to you, as a matter
Right,
of fact, you can feel all the energies of all the families. You can feel the lull and you can taste the evil if it's an evil case,
right,
or
yeah,
the sadness, and it's strong. And
right,
that is hard. So I block it all out and I tell everyone, like, I had some similar that to happen to me before near my mill. People were coming to me. I'm like, don't tell me anything. Don't tell me anything. I don't want to know, because you want to keep clear. You want to keep
right.
everything
Don't feed the
clear.
medium.
Yeah, right. Yeah, don't
Yeah,
feed the medium.
right.
No peanuts today.
That's
And
right.
so so you block it out. And for me, as I'm in the case, it's almost like I can do a case from 1 hour to 6 months, okay? And it's like an adrenaline. It's like everything is part of the case, this and that. And you just have to stay, for me, I just try to stay focused on that. I don't attach myself to the emotional part of it, of being a mother, of assisting my feelings and thoughts to the case, for the family, for anyone. I just stay in the mediumship and with my guides get information. But there'll be a time and afterwards, and I tell people be bawling their eyes out, down on the ground, everything in front of me. And I'll say, I just want to let you know that I'm not being cold to you, but I'm not emotionally attached to this right now. And I don't want you to think that I'm not thinking and feeling anything for you.
Right,
This is
right.
how it keeps me centered.
Yeah,
And then, so like if I'm at the end of a case, maybe a week later, I'll be all of a sudden, I'll think. See, the thing is when you're working on the case, you're not thinking,
right.
and then all of a sudden, I'll think about what did I just do? What just happened? Oh my God, I'm supposed to be upset about that, and then I'll see the mother's pain or something like that, and it just blah, breaks you in
Right,
half. But so
right.
there is a release too. But I know it's always there, but I try to stay, just to be the observer and not the feeler in that situation. And
Yeah,
and boom, then I'll go on to another case. Boom, boom, boom. And you have to release it too. But I try to just look at it as paper in front of me and not the emotions. It's not easy to do that. But if I continue to think about all the mechanics of the cases and that, it's just too much. So you have to
hmm,
just stay focused on what you're doing and what you're there for, and then leave it. And
right.
now
Yeah.
it's hard if you know the person too, you know what I mean? But
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely like a master skill. So I can see that it makes total sense of the priming of you doing the police work and then being able to do what you're doing. The same thing for me, they took me through, I had to go to school and learn traditional Chinese medicine and physiology and
yeah,
anatomy and all of this stuff. And then I had to get sick several times so that I could learn the healing so that they,
yeah,
could make me a true medical medium, right? So that you
yeah,
come So it's interesting the hard knocks school that they take us through sometimes.
Yeah, if you really pay attention to everything in your whole journey, nobody has a perfect life. There's no such thing, and
Right.
all the trials and tribulations account, and they just come together at some point, and then you have your aha moment, like, oh wow, that's why this happened.
Right. There's the
Well,
purpose.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, here's the gift. And then
Yeah.
I used to be like, is this really a gift or is it a curse,
Right.
But now I accept it as I'll have to tell you how I figured out it was a gift.
Yeah.
Can I tell you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had had a hysterectomy, women things, whatever, and I was sick for a month, whatever, and they give you meds and stuff like that. And so it was time for me to go back to work. I'm sitting in my studio, and there's a woman sitting across from me, and I'm not on meds anymore, for the pain, and I go in my head. Well, I could go in my head.
Mm,
And I said, "Oh my God," I started crying. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I can't see anything." I'm like, I try no connect because the medicine was blocking the connection.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I said, "Oh," she goes, "Oh, honey, it's okay. Just come back next week. Try again then.
Right.
It's
Right.
just the medicine." I'm like, "Blah," but I had a different outlook. All of a sudden, after that point, I was grateful for my connection because I can't imagine life without it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, oh my God. It was like that happened on purpose, you know?
Yeah, so that you could see it. It's interesting because they had done similar things to me as well. So me, when I first started, it was the clairvoyant. So I was able to see things and it would literally be like I was looking through a photo album or watching a TV show like crystal clear. And then I can remember several months into doing the work, showing up and it was a live event of like having to stand, evidential mediumship in front of people.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I couldn't see anything. When I would go
Oh,
into my space to see, it was not there anymore. And I froze and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And instantly I could hear. I could hear it all. And
yeah.
it's so interesting how they shut a clair off, turn a clair on, shut a clair off,
Yes.
turn a clair on, so that you can, and now it's just all at once.
Yes, I
It
was gonna say
happens.
they do that to boost it up and then they make it work like a piano. Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
fine tuning of it. That's very cool.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so now that we know we've got a sense of what's possible, I want to
Mhm.
get into the nuts and bolts of how you actually do what you do. So, for someone who's listening who thinks that psychic work is vague, right? So, what does a forensic reading actually look like from the inside out?
Okay. So forensics means information and data, just so people know this. So every case I do is completely different. So what happens to me is someone will come in my studio, or mostly it's online now. I get a lot of online, I get a lot of phone calls because I don't have to be there to help. It can be in online as well. As a matter of fact, just a couple months ago, I was in India and oh, this is really interesting. You're gonna love this. So my plane was delayed. And I was so upset. I was crying. I'm like, oh, why is this happening to me? Well, that night, I get a call from an agent. Can you help us with this missing person in United States? And I'm thinking, what? Now that happened. So I was up for a couple hours. This is 3 o'clock in the morning in India. For a couple hours working on that case, gave them all the information. Now, if I had been on that 22-hour flight, I wouldn't have been able to help.
Right,
And we
right.
were
Yeah.
able to help that family.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was really happy. So I forget what was the question?
Yeah, just take us on the inside. So when you're
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
forensics.
the forensic inside outside, yeah.
Yes. So, all right. So basically what will happen is someone will come in or call me and I'll say to them, don't tell me anything about what's happening. But they kind of briefly tell me, now they do, is a missing person, homicide, this and this and that. And I'll say, we can do this one of two ways. We can have a consultation for an hour. I can go in, so they'll sit in front of me and I'll go in my head and ask spirit what I need to know, this and that, get most of the information that I can. And then I'll determine whether or not we should move forward with the case. In other words, more days in the case or what type of case it is.
Mhm.
And a lot of times it's just a consultation and then they'll decide whether they want to work with me or whatever, or maybe I can help them too, pro
Wow.
bono.
Yeah.
So, and then, so a case will, so for instance, there's many different types of cases. I'll work on that case. Again, the woman comes in, she gives me a boy's first name. I don't know anything. I say, okay, have a seat, sit down. And, or I'll do it online too. And I'll say, I'm going to write everything down in front of you. And what I do is I go in and ask spirit, show me what I need to know. And then I'll write down maps, like their sketches and stuff. And sometimes like I can't draw an apple at all, but I can draw someone's face
Ah,
when I'm channeling, so
right.
they'll channel me the information that I need to write. And then I'll say to the person, do you understand this? Do you understand? 9 times out of 10, they're crying, they understand it. Okay, let's continue. Let's see if I get any dreams. I'll call you back in a few days if I get any dreams. And if not, then we'll go in again, get the information. And what happens is we I get the information spirit gives me, and then uh, I go deeper into those questions after there comes a point where like, okay, there's certain questions we need to ask. So I'll ask spirit to show me in two different ways. So I'm not thinking, you know what I mean? So they'll
Right.
show me all this information. And then what happens at the end of the case is either we have information that they need this and that. So what I'll do is I'll write up a report if they want it, and I'll write all my data and landmarks, this and that. So the police woman comes out in me as well too,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
give them the information if they need it. And sometimes they don't need to have it, but
Right.
sometimes it's good info. So
Mhm.
yeah. So is that what you mean?
Yeah. And so I guess that would look a little different though. So you have done work for the FBI or other
Mhm.
agencies, as you call it.
Yeah.
So how does that how did like the first time that one of those agencies approached were you like a little bit like, okay.
Well, it's really interesting. I actually was on a case and we introduced them to me because we had to, because we were in a town and the only people in the town was the state police, FBI agents. They were all in the woods, everything. And we come in there with me and my friend and I said, "Oh my God, I have to tell you something. This is really fun." So we come in there and I'm like, "We have to introduce ourselves because everyone is suspect." Right? And I
Right.
said, I want to be professional. So I walked in and I told them who I was, just so they know that this is the reason why I'm walking around all these places, this and that, because at the time I was a feeler, this was one of my first cases and I was like, oh, I'm feeling this and that. And we were writing everything down and they followed us, you know what I mean? And that's
Right.
how I got introduced to FBI. And I forget what I was telling you. I don't know. My mind, I
Yeah,
get so excited.
so the first thing with the experience of doing the FBI, so how you kind of got
Yeah.
like your first FBI case working with them.
Yeah, so that happened. So from there, I made contacts. And the next thing I know, they're calling me, they're asking me for this, and that. Yeah.
And I suppose you, as being, a former policewoman, you kind of speak their language. So it wasn't like,
Right.
oh, here's this woo-woo lady with the, we're going to talk to the trees and the fairies and that kind of stuff, right?
Right, exactly. And they see me,
Yes.
and they
Yeah. Yeah.
understand. Yeah. And I know, and you're right, because it is a different lingo.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
really it is. And my hardest part was coming into the psychic world of lingo.
Right.
And I
Right.
still have, I still suffer from that. But it's what keeps it real. That's why I look at it. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, it's a learning curve with everything. So so when you talk about crime scene mapping though,
Mhm.
it's such a charged term. Can you walk us through like one case where your mapping led to like a breakthrough, like when that
Oh,
just
sure.
happens?
Yeah, I've been a lead in over 400 cases. So
Wow.
yeah, it happens a lot. So basically what will happen is I'll have I'll talk with my spirit, the universe, and I'll just etch like images. Actually, I'll have to tell you a recent one that this is really interesting. So I in my like if I see a dream, I do the same thing too. Because it's I'll write down the dream, I'll draw it.
Right.
And but yeah, so I'm funneling the information and sometimes I'll just say a word, like it's like Tourette's. I'll say, oh, rainbow. I'll put a
Right.
rainbow down. So I'll just write rainbow, and I'll draw sketches and I just go with what I feel. So what I'm doing, so here's the universe, the spirit world. Here's an open channel. This is me, and here's the person sitting here, or the piece of paper. So I'm just
Right.
allowing the energy to come through me and kind of throwing up on the page.
Right. Right.
And so
Yeah.
then I'll go through all the other pages and then I'll look. And sometimes what I'll do if it's of a location afterwards, I'll say, oh, this is interesting. Like there's this one case, I got all this information. I'll have to tell you, this is really cool. So I'm standing there. I'm in a dream. I got this in a dream. And sometimes, even if it's a vision, it's still a dream to me. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
still that
Yeah.
state.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I look to the left and I see all these people skiing far distance, and they're all wearing red jackets. And when I used to work on, and I'm sorry, when I was in I'm sorry, a production company followed me around for 6 months, okay? And they gave me a red jacket to wear, and it had like my emblem here. And
Right.
in the dream, they were all wearing those jackets, right? And I'm
Right.
like, and so then I turn my head to the right, and all of a sudden I see this humongous rainbow. I'm like, wow. And then all over it in the middle, and I saw cows, like a ranch. And
Yeah.
next thing I know, I'm turned around and there's this chalet in front of me with a car with license plates. And I'm thinking, and then I woke up, I'm like, oh my God. So I wrote everything down. And so what I'll do is, oh, before I woke up, I heard Breckenridge. And I said, I think that's Colorado. So I went on the thing and I looked up rainbows in that area. And sure
Yeah.
enough, there was it. The I can't remember. It was Red Peak or something. That's what it was called, Red Peak. And I
Oh,
said, "Oh my God, that's the Red Jackets." And then rainbow thing, and then there was a field, some type of ranch or whatever. I'm
right.
like, "Oh my God, it was amazing." And then the showed me the house. So I got on there. I think, "Oh wow, this is location. This is the." And then so then we go in, ask. So then I go in my head and ask Spirit more questions, and then they show me more. And then we
Right.
get down to, yeah, it was really cool. So that
Yeah, that's
actually,
how all the pieces come together. So that's your mapping, like that's how you're actually putting the mapping together. So
yes,
when you're reading a scene like that, so whether it's coming through a dream, because and I know what you mean by, the dream state, and then of course when we're doing when we're in the gap where we're,
right.
connecting, it feels very energetically the same. So how do you know then when you're doing the read, how do you know whether it's real or it's imagination?
Oh, well, that's part of the mastering the mediumship. So when I teach my students is to um, like I'll teach them exercises to not think subconsciously.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens is what we'll do is we'll do an uncontrolled reading and a controlled reading. Well, I'm sorry, we'll do an uncontrolled meditation and a controlled meditation, We'll do there's signs and keys when you're doing the readings to understand if you're thinking subconsciously or not. And this is what I teach in the class. And once you master that, you won't think twice about it later on. You won't even doubt it because you'll know. And part of what I like to, I'll be honest with you, what I like to always ask Spirit is show me in two different ways that I'm not thinking. It's always about your intent and what you ask Spirit. And you have to be very clear in what you ask Spirit because you won't receive what you need.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think from working with so many students as well, I would say because it's very exciting when you like have the taste of being into another realm and being able to there's like this. And I would say to students, they'd be very gifted intuitively and very, connected. But I would say you go to La La Land. Don't go to La La
Ah,
Land because if you're in the spirit world and you're just sitting there like in a meditative state,
right.
it can't be passive. It has to be it's very much we would use the analogy of, when you see a duck on the water and you see the duck at the top and this beautiful duck still and calm and sitting there, that's how we are to the outside. But on the inside, our feet are paddling like this because we're giving, sending
Right. It's
information.
all about communication with your guides. And I tell everyone the universe is control, your spirit guide. You're working for your spirit guides. You're working for the universe. And what the most important thing is to know is from the beginning of your mediumship, and there's no perfect medium, and that's you have to remember that
Right.
too.
Yes. Yeah.
But what's important is the communication, and your guides are going to build your mediumship for you, and they know how to fine tune you the best. And
Right.
it's always about your guides, so all you have to do is ask because they're the ones we're just open channels.
Right.
Yes, we might be more sensitive than other people, but we're allowing and we're giving it up to spirit. We're
Yeah.
giving our higher power the reins, and that's the key as well, and communication with them because they're the ones who are in control. And if you don't communicate with them, they're going to keep repeating the same cycle over till you communicate in the way they want you to. This is what I find. it's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
almost like, it's just like life. It's like building blocks. Like when you're in a toxic relationship, you're going to still repeat those lessons until you learn them. It's the same thing with mediumship. I tell my students all the time, in the next 2 weeks, you're going to learn something from spirit. But if you don't learn it, they're going to keep repeating it till you do. And then once
Right.
you learn it, they're going to step you up a little bit. They're going to step you up and keep going
Yeah.
and going, going.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm just curious about your take and what you've kind of been given about this. So It's always when I would do readings for clients, they would always want to know what's the name of their guide, what's the name of their guides, what is the right for you, for me, I have a divine guidance team. It's a group of collective energies. They come and they go. Sometimes they're interchangeable. They're all. I've
Right,
never ever had any of them come in and say, Jody, this is our name. This is our. They just don't do that.
right,
What's
yeah.
your experience, and do you think there's an importance to that? Should we
Well,
have?
that's really funny. I have to tell you this. So, yeah, because being the skeptic myself, I was the biggest skeptic there is, I swear, and I'm sure you were too. But so in the beginning, I was told by my teachers, and I have to remind people that remember, teachers are just your guides. They're not there to control you and tell you what's right or wrong within your mediumship.
Right. Yeah.
I went through hard times in the beginning because I had tough teachers. So that's why I learned how to teach a little bit more contemporary than the old school.
Right. Right. Right.
But what's important, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Guides' names, finding
Oh
out
yeah,
their
guys'
names.
names.
Yeah.
And so when I first started, I was describing a Franciscan monk. And my teacher says, well, what do you feel when you look at the person? I said, Fran. And she's
Right.
like, oh, maybe it's a Franciscan monk. This is what. And I was always told this is what I was told in the beginning, you could name your guides as you see them, and then don't ever go to another guide unless this guide gives you permission to go to this guide. I'm thinking, oh my God, there's so much to know, right?
Right. So many rules.
Yeah. And when I just realized, later on realized, and I'm like, you know what? For me now personally, the whole universe is my guide. All the angels are my guide. I try
Right.
not to specifically, unless I'm calling someone out, could you help me out here? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just allow the universe and my guides to help me because they know what's best for me. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Absolutely.
And so to me, guides are, yeah, they can be your parents, your family, they can be anybody. You know what I mean? It can
Yeah.
be angelic or alien or whatever that is, and that's great. And if you resonate with that guy and you want to talk to them back and forth, that's fine. But for
Right.
me, it's more of a collaboration of all souls, of
Yeah.
all energy. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I try not to get stuck in that anymore, but in the beginning, by gosh, I had a couple that stayed with me, and then like every now and again, I don't know about you, but like I'll see like I noticed that like so if here's the map of Canada and the United States, right? And all of a
Okay.
sudden you see these white lights. Well, all those white lights are mediums. And
Right.
all the energies of the universe go to those white lights, like, hey, here we are. We're gonna help you. Let us help you. Tell everyone, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yes.
so I just try to understand that it's a collective now,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I
For sure.
so but some people want to talk to their guide, this and that, and that's fine and all this that to me. But even when who am I to say that that one guy? Oh, this is another thing that I was taught early on, is that in Mi'kmaq Indian in family, and they said, oh, we have one guy that takes the face of five, right? Well, how does that explain the other 10 people that are there? Right? So
Right.
I had said, okay, I understand, but I'm not feeling that any longer.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. Well, there's so many limiting. I feel like too in the beginning, one of my teachers and several of them after talked about the gatekeeper. Here's your gatekeeper, and this is the spirit guide that decides who can come through and who can't come through. Well, I felt like my gatekeeper didn't always show up very well because there would
No,
be, do you know what I mean? It would be like,
I must
where
be at
is
the wrong end,
yeah, where's this gatekeeper? And then so what I learned, through the portal of self-discovery is that it's all about frequency. So if I didn't want specific spirit energies to come through, then I raised my frequency. I get up in frequency and I don't go into the darker frequencies. That
That's
so
right.
I'm my gatekeeper. Like I become the
That's right.
gatekeeper. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
everything's frequency. Yeah.
absolutely. So do you think this is then a tuning into frequency? And if so, can you raise or lower that dial intentionally depending on the type of case that you're working on?
Well, that's interesting that you say that because when I'm working on cases, every case is different and it's a different feeling and it's a different energy. But there is definitely a difference when I'm working on a forensics case with my mediumship. It comes to me differently.
Hmm.
I mean, it's still mediumship, but the energy is different. Absolutely. And yeah, it depends yeah, it's all about tuning in. It
Yeah,
really
for
is. It's
sure.
about your antennas, and
Yeah.
but it is all frequency. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but yeah, so I feel that everything is frequency and vibration in the universe. We forget so often
Hmm.
that we live in space,
Right.
right? And
Yes.
everything we are, these bodies are just our astronaut suits. Our soul, our inner light system is within us, and that travels within these bodysuits. And when the bodysuits don't work anymore, we leave the bodysuits and go into that collective, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. So I know like the work that you do is so powerful, but we know it's heavy because you're not
Yeah.
it's not just love and light. You're not just having grandmothers come through and say how much I loved you.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
working in the deep stuff. So I want to explore the emotional and the ethical side of it. So what's one of the heaviest things that you've ever seen in a reading?
Well, I want to say when I work with I block it out. That's really what I would say. They're all heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, like I block it out, like emotionally. I have to. This is the only way I can stay sane, you know? I'll, mm, I'm just feeling like, like triple suicides and stuff like that and all that.
Yeah, that's the hardest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes if I'm in a case like it'll strike me like I'm a mother as well, you know what I mean? And I understand that everyone has mothers and stuff. That's the hardest part for me
Hmm.
is like if I'm working with a family is the hardest part for me is not actually the case itself. It's more about working with the family and
Right.
and seeing them the pain they go through. And it just breaks my heart. And I'm like, oh my God, you just don't know how you're going to die, when you're going to die, what's going to happen. So it puts you in a different space where you look at life differently. And
Hmm.
I think that's the hardest part, honestly,
Yeah, yeah,
you
for
know?
sure. And I don't know if you know this, but this is, that traditionally mediums don't live very long.
I don't
Did
believe
you
that.
did you know that? Well,
No,
it's historically, if we look at some of the most famous, and I feel like my spirit team has shown me it's just because, again, we have to recognize that everything is a frequency. And so when we are somebody who's constantly interacting, bringing in other people's frequencies, we really have to get good at optimizing the human vessel, the human vehicle, so that we
yeah.
don't have these layers of density, right? I had to learn it the hard way because, again, it's one of the self-discovery portals that my team brought me on was that I couldn't meditate or pray or use the crystals or the smudge or the prayer to fully optimize my vehicle. And so I had to, at some point, make my human vehicle a priority. So I had to,
Mm-hmm.
cleanse, I had to strengthen, I had to clear,
Yeah.
I had to do all of this on a physical level
Mm-hmm.
so that then I could hold more light, so that I was able
Absolutely.
to up my game like that. And I feel like, if you
Water,
look
water, water.
right, well, you look at back in the day, there would be I can't remember what her name was, but she like was a chain smoker. She like had this really rough like you would look at
I
the
know who you're talking about.
yeah, and they would, and you could clearly tell that they were not, and it takes a lot
Right.
of energy to be a medium.
It
It's
sure does. Yes, it
right.
does.
It's not like we're just showing up in, at a retail store and selling people
Hmm.
stuff. It's
You
like,
have, yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So how do you then keep, from carrying the trauma of what you witness in
Mhm.
spirit? What's your kind of like
Well,
go?
I don't keep it. That's the key.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I don't reiterate it. I don't go over it. I just treat it as it's work, at that it's work. I don't become attached to it emotionally.
right,
You
right.
know what I mean? That's the key. I stay focused. When I work, I work. And when I'm in my family life, it's my family life. But I also I walk every day. I drink a lot of water when I'm working. I like if I'm doing like a spirit gallery, in front of people and stuff, I drink a gallon of water before I go on, gallon of water during, gallon of water after because of the energy depletion. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Sometimes I'll get out in the earth and walk and just regenerate. So
yes,
just connect and electrocoagulate with the earth.
yeah.
And so in the food, I'm vegetarian as well, so the foods I eat are greens, it's life force, you know what I mean? So that helps too. And also training when meditation really helps.
Yeah.
Meditation is key because meditation helps you to clear the thoughts and gets back to your soul, your higher power, who you are, your inner light system.
Right.
And yeah, so life is not easy, and I tell everyone, don't worry about dying. Uh, our life is only one dream.
Yeah, that's
There's no
beautiful.
such thing as time,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So why worry? Who cares? Just do your best.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Yeah,
You
I love
know?
that. So I know that because there's more than just that. So I know that your work doesn't stop at just solving crimes. It extends into peacekeeping and diplomacy. And so as an international torch for peace ambassador, wow, that's a
That's a
big
big
job
title.
title. How does that role connect with your investigative work? How do those two worlds kind of merge?
Well, it's really interesting. I was in Washington, D.C., was it last November, and I actually did a prayer for all the world's children in the National Cathedral. And part of the Peace for International, I'm sorry, International Torch for Peace. The women that run that, they also represent, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name exactly, but anyways, it's about violence and, and so they're connected with all the polices and that. So here I am in the National Cathedral, and here come walking in 2,000 police officers in
Wow,
their cadence, you know what I mean? So it's all interconnected, in a sense. I'm their spiritual advisor, is what I am.
that's
But
very
in the
cool.
political world, I'm not known as the psychic medium. I'm known as the spiritual advisor, you see?
Hmm,
Which is
that's
fine.
interesting.
Yeah, which is
Yes.
fine. And I'm fine with that.
Right. Call me what you need to call me to.
Right.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
part of the reason why I love it is because my mission is for people to find peace within themselves, find peace not through violence. You know what I mean? It's against all of that, and to teach
Hmm.
people about the inner the power of the unseen, that intuitive side of you where all your power is, and to help find peace within you and to spread peace as well. And they have me saying prayer. I actually am going back into New Jersey to the Basilica in November, and I have to do another speech for all the world's children, so divinely when I speak these prayers, these speeches, it's coexisting, but it's also divinely inspired as well. So for me, I'm spreading the word of love and connection to the children and to the people of the world.
Yeah, I love that. And so, do you see energetic patterns then between personal violence and global conflict?
Oh yeah, I see all the patterns. You can see all the patterns too. You can see everything that you're in mediumship. Yes, and so I mean, I am only one person, but I do my best uh, in honor of the divine to mm, find peace within the conflict. But yes, there's patterns, and a lot of the people in the world, you know, I even when people come in for readings and everything, uh, I and we can change the world one by one. You help one person, you help a million.
Hmm.
So I try to show them the connections of existence and the importance of love and getting to know their inner light system. And when I say that, everything, their thoughts, their thoughts, their overthinking, to understand that we're all beings of light and love, and that everyone is light. This is who we are, to help them to find their purpose, to help them to find peace instead of conflict. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And so, if somebody that's listening right now is feeling like the call to this work, like they're feeling the gentle nudge or the head with the frying pan over the head, what's the very first step that they should take?
Well, they should come to my classes or yours. I'm just kidding. No, but actually, what you could do is I do encourage psychic development, and you can go to my website for that. But I do encourage meditation because meditation, you go on YouTube. There's thousands of meditations, guided meditation. Before you go to bed at night, listen to a guided meditation and help it clear your thoughts. you know, because people, I used to have a meditation center and people would say to me, "Oh, I can't meditate. I think too much." And I'll be like, "That's perfect. You're doing exactly what you need to do because part of meditation is being conscious. If you're not conscious, you can't meditate. You need to have that understanding." And so I really believe that meditation is key because it helps you to get back in your inner light system, your inner world, which is actually your outer world, but out of the material world, help you get out of your daily trials and stuff, and you get in touch with that soul inside you, that beautiful soul inside you, and that will help you to what the deeper you do meditations, eventually you'll start seeing things that you're not subconsciously thinking, you know, like, oh wow, what was with that purple fish, you know?
Right,
You
right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I highly suggest meditation. And I don't mean just sitting there and going om and mantras. I mean going in guided visual meditations, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, doing the deep dive. So
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I just want to pull back the curtain one last time. I'm curious, has Spirit ever just flat out refused to work with you on a case?
No,
Never.
I
They
never have
always
that.
show up
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. The thing about it is I don't look for my cases.
They find you.
They find me. Yep.
Yeah,
I work for the spirit world. I work for the universe. And if I'm supposed to help someone, they'll come to me. I don't ever search it. I could go on all day long doing that, but I don't want to. I
right.
want
Yeah.
spirit to show me. And that's how I know. Like I had a case near my mill one time and the boy, I just so happened, usually my cases are far distance from not near the mill. And he was only a couple miles down and he was missing. And people come in, oh, you know, I'm like, oh, don't tell me anything, please. And I sat in there and I said, okay, spirit, if I'm supposed to do this case, let you come to me. Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna shut everyone out. I get home,
Right,
my husband goes, this, I'm like, don't tell me, because it was on
right,
TV. I'm like, don't tell
right.
me.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, I get a call from one of my contacts in the state. Hey, Sheila, could you help us out? We're at a dead end. And I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to work in this. Is thank you. And
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And so I have to give it up to give it for, and I even do that with my readings. If I'm supposed to help someone connect with their loved one who's passed, which I love to do, I
Right.
they'll come to me. You know, I'm not the seeker. I'm just the
Yes.
observer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
So here's probably like the hardest question that I'm going to ask you. Maybe not. Maybe it won't be so hard. But so what is Sheila Marie still searching for?
Oh, I don't search. I I don't search. My battery's running low, just to let you know that. I'm not searching for anything. I'm honestly what I want to do is spread the word more. That's really what I want. I just want to meet new people and continue going forth in what I'm not preaching. I suppose I'm preaching, but I'm just letting people know that how that they can connect to the universe. I just want to continue moving forward that way, you know.
Beautiful. I love that so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, thank you.
So Sheila Marie just gave us a master class in what happens when intuition meets investigation and when spiritual service reaches the deepest, darkest corners to bring the truth to light. So if you want a deeper dive into her work, whether it's forensic mediumship, psychic training, or global peace initiatives, you can find her at SheilaMarieMedium.com. We'll have all of her links in all of the places that you're watching and listening. And Sheila, I just want to thank you so much for showing us that the unseen isn't just mystical, that it's actually a force for justice, healing, and real world change. Thank you so much for sharing this space with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Really.
Beautiful. Thank you. We'll have to have you come back because I'm sure
Oh,
there's
I would love
good,
to. That would
good,
be
good
great.
stories you haven't shared with us yet.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks everybody for
All
tuning
right.
in, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Collective Soulversations. If today's conversation challenged you, inspired you, or cracked something wide open, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a comment, share it with your circle, and leave us a review. It helps us to reach more of the people who are ready to step up. For those of you who are ready to go even deeper into this work, visit jody-jones.com. The real work begins there. See you next time. Stay awake, stay grounded, and lead yourself forward.